Here's how you can level up your social attractiveness. Now, if you're watching this video, you might be someone who's quite socially anxious, someone who's struggling to initiate small talk or struggling to even hold conversation. And to be honest, I've also been there. I've been that guy who's looked at a group of people at school and just gone social, just just had this rush of anxiety because I've seen this group of people that I would want to talk to, but for some reason I just couldn't. And I realized that that had to do with the way I communicate with other people and my own social skills. But over time, I've come to realize that you can be this guy who's socially anxious all the time and someone who struggles to hold conversation with people and completely transform that guy into someone who is more socially confident. But it's absolutely possible that you can change the way you speak with others and your own social skills over time. And what makes improving your communication skills so important is that if you fix this one aspect of your life, this will ultimately affect all the other parts of your life in a positive way, and you'll experience growth in all areas if you focus on improving this one important part of your life, which is the way you communicate with people and managing your social anxiety. And the book How to Win Friends and Influence People gives you the perfect opportunity to reset your theories of the way you should communicate with people and how you should actually act towards them. For instance, in my case, I believe that in order to have great conversations with people, I should be talking about what I'm up to and just talk about all about me rather than focusing on the other person that I'm actually talking to, which is completely wrong. And the book How to Win Friends and Influence People completely debunked this idea that I had in my mind. And if you master these principles that I'm about to tell you, this will put you on the right track to putting yourself out there more and showcasing the best version of yourselves. Even if you're watching this video and you consider yourself a G and this social conversationalist guru, then these principles will still apply to you and still be useful to you if you remember them and if you continue to act on these principles. And so the first principle, which is the most important one, is something that you've probably heard a lot about, which is to listen more and talk less about yourself. Listening is underrated in conversations today because in the past, in my experience, I used to not really listen to the other person more, but then I would rather interrupt with my own opinion or starting to talk about myself. But you need to be listening more to the other person. You should be listening to what the other person has to say and digest that. And this is particularly important because the other person sees that by you listening to them, you're giving more of your attention to them. And attention is what people value in conversations. And in addition to this, you want to have a sense of curiosity in the other person and what they're actually saying. You have to internalize this idea that you are there to listen to that other person and have a sense of curiosity of what they're talking about. So if that other person is really interested in cars, let's say, then you could also chime in and talk about your experience with cars and maybe even ask questions on whatever car that they're talking about, for instance. The idea is to have that sense of curiosity in conversations. And if you want to initiate conversation, find a degree of relatability in the context of conversation. So let's say you're at school and you want to talk to this person beside you. Maybe you want to ask them about the assignment that's due this week, ask them a question about this assignment. And then from then on, the conversation develops and it will eventually go into other areas which you want to ask the person about rather than just about the assignment. This is a good tip to remember if you want to initiate any conversation, which is to have the context in the back of your head while you're talking to that other person. This is a point that most people do already, but the people don't really remember it when it comes time to wanting to talk to this particular person. They tend to forget this principle altogether, and It's important to keep this in mind whenever you're talking to someone. And you need to understand that in any conversation, you yourself have a role to play, which is to spread good vibes. Now, this sounds kind of cheesy, but you want the other person to feel good after talking to you, just like you want to feel good after talking to that person. And that would only happen if you wanted to spread good energy and good vibes in that conversation. So for instance, you could be more humorous, make crack jokes with the other person, be more charismatic. And one of the best ways to create good vibes is to compliment the other person. People love to hear good things being said about them. So when you compliment the other person will, in 99% of the cases, feel good about themselves, that this person is complimenting me about my physique or what I'm wearing today. That's how you set a good energy between you and the other person, which is to compliment them. Although it doesn't have a massive role in the words that you say, having strong body language is important for other people to engage with you. Now, for instance, a lot of people, including myself, I tend to still do this today, is that whenever I stand up, I tend to sometimes have a closed body language, like where I have my hands in my pockets like this. I'm closed off to you. You're not going to be engaged if I'm just going to be standing like this and I'm talking to you with my hands in my pockets, or if I'm just standing like this. Instead, I'm going to have an open body language. You should have an open body language to whoever you're talking to, and using hand gestures while you're speaking allows the other person to feel more engaged with you. You have some sort of movement going on in that you're projecting yourself to the other person and that you're listening to them. In addition, when you're sitting down, try not to just sit down and, hands in your pockets. Be more open, relax a little bit more, take a bit more space around you, and sit in a way where you're actually showing interest in what the other person's saying, having a more open body language. And in particular, when you're standing up, try to have your shoulders, back a little bit, and instead of being hunched over like this, have them back a little bit. And this will allow the other person to be more engaged in the conversation, because having a strong body language like that is what actually makes you more charismatic. It's one of the parts to being more charismatic, when you have an open body language. So the final principle that you should implement is dressing well. Even though this sounds like it has nothing to do with how you communicate with other people, dressing well is important to yourself internally, in that you feel good, you feel confident about what you're wearing today. And what I've noticed in myself in particular is that whenever I wear something that I really like, I tend to have this more confident vibe that I feel throughout me, and I transpire that through the way I communicate with other people, and even the way I walk. So it's important for you to invest in your wardrobe, because if you wear something that you're confident in and that something that you feel good in, and that kind of energy is what spreads through your interactions with other people and even the activities that you do throughout the day. You just feel this different kind of energy. And it's a philosophy that I implement in my own life personally, that in order to do well in something today, let's say you had a test today, it's important for you to look good, to smell good in particular, because these little things can actually add up and make a difference to the way you're thinking today and the way that you're going about things today. Implementing these principles throughout the day, throughout every single day, is what will actually transform you from being someone who's socially anxious and just insecure all around. And following these principles will actually improve your social skills drastically and make you far more confident than you were before. Following these principles will put you on the right path to becoming socially attractive to everybody around you.